It's time for Lefties Losing It. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. You do not hate the leftist media enough. You think you do, but you don't. And let me again demonstrate why. After the sickening Minnesota shooting where a trans-identified monster shot multiple children, killing 2 and injuring dozens more, the media were not only eager to downplay the killer's trans identity and what he expressed in his manifesto, the confession about why he committed this horrific act, but they were also very mindful of respecting this child-killing monster's preferred pronouns. Here is Jake Tapper.
Because there's been some confusion about what the shooter's name was.
Yes.
Robin Westman's mother applied to change her child's name in 2019. It was at one point Robert Paul Westman.
Correct.
But since she identifies as a female and wants her name to reflect that identification, was underage, it's now Robin Westman.
No, Jake, it was not a she, never was, never will be. It was a child-killing man. Here is ABC again, referring to this killer as a she and obediently observing this murdering bastard's preferred pronouns.
The minor child, quote, identifies as a female and wants her name to reflect that.
Indeed, the list of TV hosts and media outlets playing this game was lengthy. Here is Andrew McCabe on CNN again, taking a break from lying about Russian collusion to note that the killer's mother is grieving for her daughter.
For the mother to not even return to the state to answer law enforcement questions, to try to provide some assistance. I'm sure she's grieving for her daughter.
And here is PBS, the taxpayer-funded PBS, cutting off a Democrat politician, Amy Klobuchar, who used accurate pronouns to describe this mass shooter. The host then corrected the senator.
Of course, the hate, you're going to find that this perpetrator, that this horrific offender, that
right.
It was all-purpose hate, right? He hated a lot of different groups. It wasn't one ideology or another.
We're going to have to leave it there. That is Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you for thinking of us. Thank you.
And just a point of clarification, Senator Klobuchar referenced the shooter as he. Although police have identified a suspect, it's still unclear at this time what that person's gender is or how they identify.
And the media would have you believe that this killer who put together a manifesto expressing his hate for Christians, for Jews, for Donald Trump, indeed, he wanted to kill the president, and yet the media would have you believe that no one knows his motives. They're oblivious to the motives or to the fact that there's been a spate of trans-identified mass shooters. And shame on the politicised Minneapolis police for their cowardice and, of course, the Democrat Minneapolis mayor.
We don't have a motive at this time.
It's unclear what the motive was.
Again, there's just nothing specific in the evidence that's been recovered.
There's no information, nothing specific to identify a specific motive, but they'll be continuing to talk to people to see if there was a flag, if something may have popped up that they can look into.
There's no clear motive, and that's what we want to know. Was this a revenge shooting because there were prior affiliations to the school? Is this notoriety?
The shooter identified, we are told, as female, legally changed their name from Robert to Robin. There's no connection yet from that to the motive.
I don't believe that how the shooter identifies currently in this investigation right now is of significant importance.
The mayor also calling on people to, quote, stop villainizing the trans community after learning that the suspect, who was born male, identified as female.
Spoke about this so profoundly and powerfully.
I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community.
Anybody that is going to use this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community.
This is not the time to jump to conclusions about the shooter, right? What his ideological views might have been.
And well done to Tom Elliott for putting together that compilation. And there are some in the media upset that the killer's trans identity was mentioned at all.
Say demonic, and then it's transgender maniac shoots up Catholic school. You know, they could very easily say time and time again, straight white maniac shoots up Catholic school.
There's a lot of misinformation circulating right now. This individual, as far as we know, did identify as transgender. However, as we look at the spectrum of mass casualty events in our nation's history, there have been a range of motivations and a range of profiles that have been associated with mass casualty events. You look at the shooting in Charleston at a historically black church in 2015. That was perpetrated by a white supremacist.
Yeah, let's go back to 2015, or perhaps we can focus on this mass shooting and a number of others like it in recent years.
The Denver shooter was trans, the Aberdeen shooter was trans, the Nashville shooter was trans, the Georgia shooter was trans, the Philadelphia shooter was trans, the Uvalde shooter was trans, the Colorado shooter was trans, and now the Minnesota shooter was trans. I think one of the things that you see being pointed out by the Walsh types is that even if there is no clear ideology, there is something in the water with the untouchable nature of the trans identity until just the past really year that you could even talk about it frankly, and what appears to be a kind of underlying mental instability that tends to disproportionately give rise to these school shootings.
Now, here is a dude identifying as a woman, a compassionate, loving lefty, expressing sadness for the kids that were murdered. But listen to the rest of what he says. This is absolutely putrid and callous, just gross.
I feel terrible for the kids. I feel so bad for not just the victims, but the people who witnessed it and will now have to live with that for the rest of their lives. I don't feel bad for their parents. This happened at a Catholic school. There should have been no children there at all. We know what the church does to kids, so I feel terrible for the kids. May the universe protect them from their Catholic parents.
What a gross individual. Now, one man who has had enough of the media, political and activist classes' lies and gaslighting is Seb Gorka. Let's hear from the White House counterterrorism czar on CNN, correcting the host's dodgy data and conclusions.
Between 2016 and 2020, 96% were non-trans men. So I know you're focusing on this shooter being trans.
Well, no, because your facts obfuscate two things. You are using data based upon the predominant gun violence, which is gang-on-gang violence with zero ideological content. If you remove all of that, the gang violence on the streets of Chicago, LA, Detroit, then you come down to a much smaller data set. So it's like those who say, you know, gun violence in America causes so many deaths, and then fail to note that the majority of the stats they are using refer to also suicides by gun, which of course is not what we are talking about here today. So let's concentrate on mass shootings at schools, specifically Christian or Catholic schools. Then the data set is wholly different. So don't conflate different data sets just to make a political point. There was an ideological content to this attack. That's what terrorism is. It's not because somebody didn't get the drug deal they wanted. It is an ideological message, whether it was anti-Israel, as in this case, whether it targeted President Trump in its rhetoric, as we saw on one of the magazines written by the perpetrator on that YouTube video, or whether we saw the fact that it was anti-Christian and targeting children. That has nothing to do with gang violence. Let's not mix the two things up.
Welcome back. Now, we're finding out more and more about the latest trans shooter, Robert Westman. Andy No reports the father of the Minnesota gunman was the one affirming the shooter's gender dysphoria. The mother, Mary Jane, who has been attacked online for her part, was allegedly pressured by everyone around her to sign the court document approving the transition. The shooter himself admitted in his manifesto that his mother, a devout Christian, was not supportive of the transition and he resented her for it. A source told Andy No that the children always went behind Mary Grace's back to Jim for approval of doing things she didn't approve. Joining me now is comedian and host of Primetime with Alex Stein on Blaze TV. Alex, these revelations are pretty astonishing. In the aftermath of this shocking mass shooting, the mother was maligned, though it appears She had little choice but to affirm her son's transition, particularly in a state like Minnesota.
No, Rita, you're exactly right. But let's just be honest, fortifying a mental illness like gender dysphoria basically just says to Robert that Robert was born in the wrong body. And I feel like once you kind of make that diagnosis in a young person, it really is almost impossible to have an adult life without a lot of pain and struggle. And I think that's why Robert did this, is because Robert decided to change his gender, was not happy as a woman, and really felt like they had no other options. And, I was at the state legislature in Texas talking about the suicide rate being extremely high in transgenders. And it's just a sad reality when it comes to mental health. And we're not treating it by cutting off or giving hormones that affect people's puberties or cutting off their genitals. So, we really need to take a look at this. And I don't know how much blame we can put on the mother, but she's certainly not immune from criticism for sure. I just don't know if she's responsible for the death of these poor children.
Well, the killer himself wrote, gender and weed effed up my head. I wish I had never tried experimenting with either. How much responsibility does a parent have? It looks like the mother wasn't in favour of this, though it's been reported she felt pressured to affirm this transition. But if you've got a parent who's facilitating this, perhaps even encouraging it, including these irreversible treatments and, in some cases, surgeries, how much responsibility does a parent like that have?
Well, if Robert Westman was still at home and he was 16 or 17, I do think the parent would have a lot more responsibility. But the fact that he was in his 20s and this happened, I don't want to blame the parents. They're obviously going through a very difficult time. And once again, they did reinforce this mental illness, so they are partially to blame. But, nobody would probably expect a person to get a gun, go to a Catholic church and shoot a 7 and 10-year-old. I mean, that is just unthinkable. It's unfathomable. So, once again, it is partially for them to blame, but I don't know how much legal ramifications they'll face for this terrible tragedy because, Robert Westman was of age.
Now, Californian authorities have responded to President Trump's decision to revoke Kamala Harris's Secret Service detail by ordering the California Highway Patrol to protect her instead. They had American TV personality Spencer Pratt fired up. Here's what he had to say to California Governor Gavin Newsom and LA Mayor Karen Bass.
So Karen Bass at LA didn't have the money to fix all the fire engines in LA, but she has the money to provide a millionaire celebrity private citizen LAPD security details for her book tour. Please explain that to me. Why can't the publisher pay for the book tour? Why can't the millionaire pay for her private security? If we have extra money, why didn't you fix the fire engines that weren't there on January 7th when 12 senior citizens burned to death and then 7,000 houses burned down? But now we have the extra funds to pay for a private millionaire citizen's book tour. Please, Karen Bass, explain this to me. Please, Gavin Newsom, please explain to me how you guys have extra money, but you can't clear your dead brush surrounding our town, Gavin Newsom. Where's the extra money? I like to see it all because it's our taxpayer money. You must be hiding it.
He makes some excellent points there, Alex. His own home was lost in those wildfires earlier in the year. He knows how inept and unprepared California was for these fires, and yet they've got money to protect Kamala Harris, a millionaire on a book tour.
Rita, Spencer Pratt is 100% correct. And I know that he started off on the Hills as a reality TV show star, but now what he is doing in California has turned him into a hero. Exposing Gavin Newsom, exposing, the mayor for not filling up all the water reserves, for not having fire hydrants that work, and then exposing Kamala Harris for using taxpayer dollars for stuff that is unnecessary. So Spencer Pratt has become a hero in California. I know that people are begging him to run for office. I agree. And I know that might sound crazy, but Donald Trump was a reality TV star and now he's leading the country. So I think Spencer Pratt needs to get into politics because he is only speaking the truth and his delivery is unorthodox. And I think that's why people are resonating with it so much, like myself and, the younger generation like you are, because he's just calling balls and strikes. And we need people like that in California to try to save it.
Do you think that's possible? We're going to have Mayor Pratt or even Governor Pratt. Would he run? And is there any point running as a Republican in a state like California?
Well, I think he said that he would only run if he was backed by some billionaire. So maybe Elon Musk will join him. I mean, Elon Musk is, pretty neutral. I think that would be a great partnership and could probably propel Spencer Pratt, to win, whether it be mayor or congressman. I wouldn't be surprised because the status quo when it comes to politicians in California, they do not care about their constituents. They care more about gender and social issues.
Yeah.
So Spencer Pratt cares about putting water in the fire hydrant so when the next fire happens, 7,000 homes don't get burned.
And the next fire is around the corner. That's what we know. Wildfires are going to happen in California. Alex Stein, thank you so much for your time tonight.